All right, man. I started to cook in the sunlight. I just had to take off my fleece. I don't know if you noticed, I was wearing 4 layers, so 3 layers and a fleece on top. But man, you sit in the sunlight, black fleece on, you warm up fast. Okay, so insecurity and its nature, its essence, what it is. Let's talk about that. Okay, so the first thing I want to suggest to you is that we use the word poorly all the time, and I think there's power to be gained in learning to accurately understand what it is and have language that reflects a sound understanding of what it is. And I should have taken some time to think through a metaphor of why I think that's so, but it's almost like if you don't properly understand something that you're trying to change, then when you attempt to change it based on a poor or a faulty understanding, it's like when you grab onto that thing, attempting to steer it just doesn't go real well. It's almost like riding a bike that's made out of styrofoam. This, steering bar is made out of styrofoam or something. That's what I imagine. But then, if you actually rightly understand it, then the steering bar you're grabbing onto is steel, and it's really connected to the wheel. When you go that way, it'll go that way. So I don't know. I think just getting a right understanding of it is very important. And so I want to convince you that we use the word improperly. And we need to find better words and more accurate words when we're talking about insecurity and its effects. So let's talk about what it is. I think the best way to arrive at a sound understanding of what insecurity is, what's really going on in someone who is insecure, is to consider the word as it's used in the real world. Okay, so we could describe physical objects as being insecure. And if you envision why we would call such an object insecure, it can give you insight into what's going on in your soul. So, let's see, the last time I had this conversation with somebody, I was like, all right, so we were driving somewhere, I was like, okay, so let's talk about this. Give me an example of something in the real world that you would say is insecure. And we were driving around, and I was in my truck, and so this guy was like, a bucket full of water in the back of a pickup truck. I was like, and it's not strapped down? And he was like, yeah, it's not strapped down, it's just sitting in the back of the pickup truck. I was like, well, okay. I mean, that works. If you just put a bucket full of water in the back of the truck, and you start driving around, it's insecure because it may stay put while you're cruising at the same velocity, cruising at the same speed on the road. But once you turn, that bucket of water is going to slosh. Or if you hit the brakes, it's going to go and hit the back of the cab and slosh everywhere because it's not secure, right? If you were to take some straps or ratchet straps and strap it, ratchet it to the back of the truck so it would move around, maybe put a lid on the water, then it would be secure. Well, what do you mean? It means that if something happens, like you slam on the brakes, the bucket's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to spill water. If you take a tight turn, it's not going to hit the side of the cab because it's secure. Another guy that I mentioned this to a few months ago, he was like, I was like, okay, give me an example. What do you think of? What would be something you would call insecure in the real world? And he said, an ostrich standing on one leg. So, I was like, really? And he said, well, that's just what came to mind. So, you can think of an ostrich on one leg. Okay, so what is so insecure about an ostrich on one leg? You see it standing on one leg and it's got its balance, right? It's just standing there. It looks fine. Maybe it's secure. But then you get up close to it. Let's say it's asleep so it doesn't kick you or anything. It looks like you could just, maybe it's so tall and that thin little leg, it looks like you could just sort of poke it and it would go, and fall over, right? It seems insecure. Like it could be very easily pushed off center. Kind of like the bucket with water. Those are some images you could use. I've got some juggling balls. I used to juggle a bunch. I don't do it anymore, but I think just having a couple of simple objects that you can stack is a helpful example of what insecurity is. Sorry if the sunlight is getting a big glare. The sun's getting lower. Here, maybe I can do. There we go. I'll do this. Okay. So if I've got these two juggling balls and I try to stack the juggling ball on top of the other, I would say that ball right there is insecure. It looks stable and steady right there, but as soon as I get any vibration in my hand, it wants to fall off, right? It's not securely attached. If I glued it on, I could shake this thing like that, it wouldn't fall off, right? Then it would be secure. Are you seeing how we might use the word in real life with physical objects? And are you starting to glimpse how it might relate to a soul? Okay, so then a person who is insecure, it's like they aren't really stable on who they are yet. You know? It's like things may look good right here, but let's say you get a bad grade on a test. Oh no, I'm a bad student, I'm dumb, I'm not, blah, 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 blah. You just start going on this clamorous sort of, who am I? Because you got a bad grade on the test. Where's my life going? Let's say your significant other breaks up with you. Suddenly you're just like, who am I? You know? Let's say you get up one morning and you've got like a bad hair day or something like that. I don't really know how that goes. Because I just have amazing hair all the time. Just kidding. So let's say you get up and you have a bad hair day and suddenly you're convinced you're ugly. Right? Really? Because of the bad hair day? Or somebody says something and you're like, boom. Or somebody says something and you're... The idea is you have periods where it seems like you're secure, but then some small thing, something somebody says or something you did has the ability to just catapult you into the state of, who am I? Clinging to a sense of identity. It's like you haven't really resolved in your soul who you are yet. And so when this new information or this new sort of challenge to who you are comes, because you're not glued down, or you're not ratcheted to the truck, or you're not on both your ostrich legs, then that little thing can send you spiraling out of control. So think about what it's like when you experience a bout of insecurity. Do you go back and revisit things that you've done? Do you go back and revisit things that people have said? So let's say you've got a day where you feel kind of low, right? What sort of stuff do you do or think about to try and get rid of the lowness? Do you dress up real nice and look yourself in the mirror and try and make yourself look good to reconvince yourself that you're beautiful? Do you start calling a lot of people to convince yourself that people do like you, or that you do have friends, or that you are this kind of person? Do you compare yourself? Oh, that's a big one. Do you compare yourself to others a whole lot? There's a lot of that going on. Why do you do that? Why would you need to compare yourself to another person if you've resolved who you are? You know? So what I'm going to posit to you is that basically insecurity is like a state of the soul. It's not being resolved on who you are in the most basic levels. So if you don't know that you're beautiful, any insinuation that you're not sends you toppling. If you don't know you're this or that, you fill in the blank. I don't need to make up examples for you. So that's how you can understand some of what insecurity is. Now, one of the reasons why I say we use the word poorly is because I do, and then a lot of other people do, tend to use the word insecurity to describe self-loathing or being down on yourself, self-doubt. When what I want you to see, and this is where I'm starting to suggest you might gain some more power by rightly understanding what it really is, that insecurity is the state of the soul and it has effects. The self-loathing is the consequence of insecurity. It's how you respond as an insecure person to when there are threats to who you are. Right? So, have you ever heard that both arrogance and depression are both related to insecurity? You ever thought about why? Well, this is part of where I can start to speak from my own experience. I tend to deal with insecurity by not going on the self-loathing end of the spectrum. I deal with insecurity by going on the self-approval spectrum, right? So, for some reason, I'll find myself every once in a while thinking a lot about how other people think about me. Why do I do that? Well, I know I do it. I'm not going to go into self-diagnostic. It won't be beneficial because I think I have a complex understanding of what's going on inside of me that relates to a lot of historical patterns of behavior that haven't been worked out. But so here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that we refine our vocabulary a little bit in the way we talk about insecurity, the way we use the word. Let's understand insecurity as a state of the soul where you are not resolved about who you are. And it tends to have effects that we often call insecurity mistakenly. The effects tend to be self-loathing. If who you believe you are is very negative, then when someone gets you off-center, the thing you do to get stable again is you revisit the things you already believe about yourself. And if you believe very negative things about yourself, then you revisit, you tell yourself, I'm ugly, I'm blah, 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 I am blah, 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 and you're not good, right? They can also send you off into self-approval. And so if you see someone who is very arrogant, why are they so arrogant? Arrogance, I think, is a way of projecting a positive self-image that it's almost like it's like you're so unsure about who you are that you still think it's really important to convey it to yourself and everyone else about how good you are. That's what arrogance is. It's a false projection of yourself to try and bring resolution to who you are, right? So maybe that's beneficial or not. I just hope if you got any takeaway from this video, it's this. I want it to be this. Think of real world objects that are insecure and why you would call that insecurity, and start noticing in yourself that you may have days when you're like this, you're balanced, but then a small thing sends you rolling. That's insecurity. And the picture of security means the rain comes and the storm comes, but because you've built on something else, it's not going to shake you off your center. Or at least the process of getting rebalanced is not a long, laborious process. So hopefully I didn't beat that over the head, and help you understand a little bit about what I'm talking about. And so now I'll address some of the effects of insecurity.